Yay, they got to miss all my talking, which was great. But like I said, I am here. I'm Bianca Avery, Texas State Coordinator, she, her pronouns, Campus Vote Project. Again, we have spent time together, so you all can actually call me B if you want to. So that is fine. But I do just want to thank y'all for being here. And there's a few reminders that I wanted to go over. Quick reminder for those in attendance, please wear your name tags with your name or org or school you're representing. To my virtual attendees, please change your name to reflect the same. If you did not get a name tag, make sure you do. There's a little handy dandy number somewhere on the corner that's going to be very important later. So you do need your name tag. And I need you to pretty please love your number. Don't change your number. Stay with your number, please. Thank you. That'll come into play later. So for today's agenda, this is the welcome back. We're going to start off with an amazing keynote speaker that's going to share her story of some work that she was able to do at Prairie View. And I'm not gonna spoil the surprise. I'm gonna let her talk about it. So in a moment, I will call up someone that's gonna introduce her, and then she will actually be joining us virtually on our lovely screens. I'm gonna turn our camera so she'll be able to see our audience, which is why you're in the middle. So she knows there are people both in cyberspace and here that are listening. Then we're going to have some fun breakout room rotations. We're going to be talking about several things, including action planning, coalition building, and every single one of you will get an opportunity to go to our vendor fair, check out different organizations that are here. They have all been sponsors or helpers or supporters of the summit. So please also, I'm sure they would love to hear thousands of thanks as people walk through. So that's nice too. Go ahead and thank them. That way maybe they'll sponsor next year. Just saying. So you'll get an opportunity to go there, to talk to them, to pick up swag. There'll probably even be some extra. So if there's someone, a friend or someone you do work with or someone you just think will help, you probably be able to grab a few little things to bring with you and share with others when you return back to your campuses. Following that, we have lunch. Then we have, if you notice, that is not a typo. There are two sessions that are going to happen at the same time at 1:30. One is going to be someone from Vote Riders. Some of you saw the voter ID cards that were here yesterday. If you didn't, we have a ton of them. Literally, I have thousands of cards. I mean it, a ton of them. And she'll be talking to you about the voter ID laws in Texas and things you can do to make sure students, community members, family, really anyone you connect with in your orbit, how you can make sure they have the proper information with all the rule changes of what they need to have to present to vote, and even some information and items that can help people so they're not getting turned away, or if someone is and they shouldn't be, they know right there, like, no, according to this is acceptable, or no, this is what should happen next if I don't have this. All my admins, faculty, we will be having an admin only chat with myself, with the lovely Jenna Green, and with the lovely Cassie. So we'll be having also a little chat with both our virtual attendees that are admin and faculty, as well as those in attendance, and those will go on consecutively. Words are hard. And then after that, we're just gonna have some chat, some thank yous, some closing. We're gonna have a few people from CVP come to tell you about some of the programs we have. Just in case you aren't aware of them and want to get plugged in with some of the other amazing work we do, you'll have an opportunity to hear about that. But there's enough of my voice. I actually do not like being on this side of things right now in front of you all on the mic. So without further ado, we are about to get started. So, yep, look at it, come on. So I get to introduce someone that's going to introduce our keynote speaker, and I'm very happy and proud to be able to introduce. Up next, we have Shirley Fernandez, who is a rising junior from Houston, Texas. I grew up in Houston, so that shout out to Houston. Majoring in nursing with a minor in health at Prairie View A&M University. There you go, give it up. She has been an activist in her community since she got to college, and is also currently a Campus Vote Project Democracy Fellow. She is so excited to be here to introduce today's keynote speaker. And without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Shirley.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, did everybody enjoy yesterday? Did everyone enjoy yesterday's session? Great, great, me too. I found a lot of the information extremely valuable, and I can't wait to take that back and use it on my campus. Like Bianca said, my name is Shirley Fernandez. I am a sophomore at Prairie View A&M University. I am a member of our Student Government Association, serving as junior class justice, as well as involved in multiple different organizations, and a member of the Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. as well as some of you, I am also a New Democracy Fellow. Fall 21 is when I first got involved. If you didn't know already, Prairie View is a very big staple when it comes to voters' rights. We have had cases go all the way to the Supreme Court and win, just to make sure that students in our community and on our campus have that right to voice their voice and have that right. So, in the words of Winston Churchill, those who fail to learn from their history are doomed to repeat it. With that being said, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm such an advocate in my community, not only for the Waller County community, but as well for my student body. But that's enough of that quick little history lesson. So for our first speaker today, it's someone that I find very dear to my heart. I'm very excited to introduce her to you all. She has held multiple positions in her lifespan so far that has allowed her to serve her community like Bianca said, words are hard. Oh Lord. But she is a Prairie View alum. She graduated with her bachelor's in health as well as a Lamar University alum with her master's in public health. During her time at Prairie View A&M, she was extremely involved on campus. She had the community development senator for the SGA hat. She had the global medical training chapter founder hat, as well as the Miss Black Texas ambassador hat. Yes, she was even winning pageants. She wasn't just helping her community. So yes, many hats, so forth. But her most important hat, in my opinion, comes from one of her greatest organizations, the NAACP chapter at Prairie View A&M. Her and Zubaida Yunus, who is not here with us today at the summit, they single-handedly traveled to San Antonio to reignite the chapter at Prairie View and A&M. And not only were they able to do that, but they were also able to make a foundation deep enough to keep it going till today. So because of her passion for her community, I think that's what allows her to keep pushing every day to find better ways to help everyone. So honestly, I think that's one of my favorite things about her. Very inspiring. So with that being said, I would like to introduce to you all Genesis Elizabeth Fernandez Gibbons, my big sister.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. So happy to see you all. I'm happy to see so many representatives, different communities, different schools. That's very exciting. You guys are doing really exciting work. So thank you again to Shirley for that introduction. I thought she was going to leave out the fact that I am her big sister, but I see that she didn't. So just to kind of reiterate a little bit about what Shirley said, I am very active in my community. That started early on in my early college days. Following college, I actually work in health policy. So, we're getting people to the voter polls, encouraging people to vote. But part of what I do is sitting at these tables, and what you guys communicate to your community leaders, we're sitting down and discussing how can we make our community better for you guys. So to wrap that up a little bit, narrow it down, I actually work in health policy, hoping to affect change and leading solutions that focus heavily on eliminating health disparities. I currently do that in a quality management perspective, where essentially I ensure that the company's care model is being reflected appropriately with high quality standards to, again, eliminate those disparities, support licensure and accreditation. Within that, I revamp those policies and procedures to support the care model more specific to people that struggle with substance use disorder and mental health illnesses. So as Shirley mentioned, I did earn my degree in public health, and I am actually going on to pursue my doctorate in healthcare administration with a focus in health policy. And again, as she mentioned, during my time at PVAMU, Prairie View A&M University, I was very active on campus. However, my time there, it took me some time to find out what I was very passionate about. And if you're like me, that's completely fine. That's okay. It's going to take you some time. Don't let anyone tell you that you have to know right away. Just make sure that you're figuring it out. And then the next question is, once you figure it out, what do you do about it? So me, myself, I found that I was very passionate about encouraging people to be active in their community. So promoting community service, promoting volunteerism. And within that came a lot because, as you know, people are very passionate about different causes. So I actually started a platform which was called Missions of a Leader. And so we would basically bring together all of our passions and say the big question, what are we going to do about it? How can we make this better? So I was able to volunteer with causes such as domestic violence, work with the homeless, so on and so forth. The list goes on. But my most passionate work that I did was working with the NAACP unit at Prairie View A&M University. It's very uncommon for a HBCU to have an inactive unit. And during that time, our unit had been inactive for a very, very long time. So me and someone that is a very close friend of mine, we took it upon ourselves to go all the way to San Angelo, which was, I think it was a 7 or 8 hour drive. We went out there, showed our faces, and was like, how can we bring this back to our community? Our community needs this. We're very active with the voting and making sure that our community is advancing, but we need NAACP here on our home campus. And for those of you that don't know what NAACP is, it's the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. So they work heavily with working to disrupt inequality, dismantle racism, and accelerate change in some key areas. So those key areas for college campuses, we basically built out committees. And during my time, I was the vice president. So those committees, I was responsible for overseeing them. But the one that always stuck out the most to me was the Political Action Committee. And why, you may ask? I think it's because we were so heavily focused on voter registration that we made it almost a staple to be at very big campus events, getting people registered to vote. And later on in my speaking, you'll see why that is very important, to make sure that your campus leaders are, deputized and registered so that they can get people registered to vote. So yes, going back to the Political Action Committee, we were, again, having people register to vote. We were having bigger scale events where we were getting people to march to the polls, and so on and so forth. And in doing all of this, we were being very proactive in getting students engaged in their communities, in their campus community, Waller community. And even when they left the campus, they still had that momentum. And we're doing this in Houston, Dallas, wherever they would leave on to. So a little bit about the history of Prairie View A&M and voting. Historically, PV students, like many students, have been affected by policies that, in a sense, suppress their voice, their vote. So such as voter ID laws, gerrymandering, poll closures, cutting out early voting. And you guys being fellows, I'm sure you're familiar with what that looks like in your community. And it's very sad that this massive voter suppression consistently has targeted students, but that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here, to learn some things and get people active in their community, get them voting, and learn the importance of voting. So some examples that I've noted throughout my time while I was an undergrad and serving as vice president was that in some universities, state university IDs were not being counted as government issued IDs. As college students, you guys can see how much of a problem that could be, and how that, in a sense, could suppress the vote of somebody that is wanting to, use their voice. more specific to home, in Prairie View, there was a time where they limited the number of early voting days and the number of poll machines. I remember there was a time where they actually took the voting machines, the poll machines off of our campus. And that for us it was very drastic. It was very significant, but we did have the students that were active, march to the city hall, which is not a very light walk. And, just voice our voice, as Shirley said, and make sure that we're being heard. So that's just one of the examples. And then another one that stuck out to me from my time was that in North Carolina, there was a gerrymandered district. They literally drew a line straight down the campus map so that one side of the campus would belong to one district and the other would belong to another district. So again, those are ways that your voice, there's people that know the importance of you voting, the importance of you using your votes. And, it may sound minute to another, but when you think about the impact, it's very significant. And those are just some of the ways that voter suppression is very active, even to this day. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of you guys voting, given the history that I just shared with you guys. I really want to encourage you all to find your elected officials in your communities. If you haven't already, participate in those local elections and vote for representatives that share your values. I think that's, that's some of the groundwork that you guys have to promote or should promote within your campus community once you return. I also want to let you know that voting does give you the power to affect changes that you care about. It may not change everything, but it's definitely a great start. I think that there's some things, and you guys can agree or disagree, and towards the end, you can even share with me your perspectives. I think that there's some things that discourage younger people to vote. There's the electoral structure, there's severe underrepresentation, but I don't want you guys to look at that and that steer you away from what your passion is or your mission or your purpose in all of this. And I also want you guys to note that typically politicians, candidates, and campaigns do not talk about the issues that young people care about. And I want you guys to really ask yourself why, why that may be. If you ask yourself why, that's going to be another significant step in completing some groundwork once you get back to your communities and, just figuring out how you can make that difference. And in asking yourself why, I want you to remember that they know who votes and who doesn't. And so therefore, the issues of older voters are typically the ones that dominate the political landscape, literally by a landslide, even though some of those issues overlap. So those are some things to keep in mind, some things to ask yourself when you go back to the drawing board with whoever your home team may be, whatever organization you're a part of, or even if you represent yourself or represent your campus community by yourself. Those are some things to ask in completing the groundwork. And also, I want you guys to know that historically, young people have driven social change, and often times they spark the ignite to social movements. So as you're doing here, very, very, very significant work that you're doing. You're going to look back on what you're doing now and be like, oh, it's still there. They're doing this now. That's what I'm doing with NAACP. My sister goes to Prairie View now. And oftentimes I'm seeing the work that me and a friend started. I'm seeing the fruits of that. And that's very, very, very rewarding. So I want to encourage you guys to continue to do that, continue to be that spark, ignite those changes, those social movements. What you may think is minute today, look back and be like, oh, it was big, it was major. And I'm excited for you guys to, be a part of that and see that. I also want to talk a little bit about leadership. I know just seeing you all sitting here that you will embark on a pathway to social change, whether it's research, educating, voting, whatever it may be. I'm sure you guys have heard this. You truly are the leaders of tomorrow. So I want to just let you know, finding your passion, whatever it may be, it's fine. It's going to take some time. I want to tell you guys to empower and inspire those around you, and most importantly, to lead by example. So I hope that you guys are all registered to vote. Maybe even look into getting deputized to register other people to vote. And leading by example looks different in different communities, but I highly encourage you guys to start to look into what that may be. And I actually did not want to take too much time talking, because honestly, I don't like to hear myself talk. And especially being that I am virtual today, I didn't want there to be too much of a disconnect. I wanted it to be more so open dialogue, sharing our perspectives, maybe some ideas that have worked or things that you've seen work or haven't worked. And even we can use this time as a drawing table and see, where we can make some changes. So I actually want to open the floor for any perspectives, any questions that you guys may have. And if you could also introduce yourself too. I think we spent some time learning about me and what I've done and who I am. So I want to learn a little bit about you guys, where you're coming from, what your name is, and if you hold any leadership position or looking to hold any leadership position, you can share that too.
Right. Well, can you hear us, Genesis?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Okay. Does anyone have a question? I will pass the mic or want to share. Okay, we do. Come on. Let me bring the mic around.
Hello. Hi. Hey, Genesis. My name is Gabrielle Oji. I go by Gabby. I also attend Prairie View, and I'm a rising sophomore as well. Some leadership positions that I hold, I will be the junior class president next semester, so I'll be working close with your sister. But I also serve, I'm also a part of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. And one thing that you mentioned that I really like that you did is that students don't get that voice. And I think it's time for us student leaders to step up, become deputized, and inform students on their right to vote. I think that the common issue is that not a lot of people even know about what's going on in politics. And so we have to now shift the change and inform people now and take it a little step back. So I feel like now everybody in the room now, when you're talking to people about politics and stuff, we have to now inform people on what exactly politics is and how does it contribute to your life. Because it's not just the presidential election that affects you, it's the mayor, it's the city councilman, it's the representatives, it's the Senate. So you need to start figuring out what is your beliefs and how that person that's running for that particular position is going to affect you in your life and whatever you stand for. And so one thing that right now is happening in Prairie View is the mayor elections. And I think now what we need to do as student leaders and alum and everybody is have these mayor candidates come out and actually explain their campaign. Because a lot of what we're seeing is you're putting your sign out, but you're not standing up for what you want to do for the city. Now, I may just be here for 3 or 4 months, but what exactly are you going to do for me while I'm here? And so I think that needs to be the shift focus, and that needs to be a conversation that needs to happen immediately, because I don't want to see any more candidates just step on campus and not explain exactly what you're doing for the students. And that just doesn't go for PV, that goes for any college campus. Whatever election is going on in your community, please make these people tell you what they're doing. It's important. And I feel like a lot of these candidates don't allow our voice to be heard because they just say, oh, you're a young person. Well, my young view matters. So I definitely think that I would love to set up a meeting with the next mayor-elect and have that discussion of, if you're going to step foot on PV's campus or any college campus, please state your platform, please state what you're going to do, and just know that accountability will take place here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for sharing that information, that student leaders have to get involved. And as students, we do have to require our leaders to be involved and engage. And if you're not going to engage and be involved, then you need to be taken out of that position accordingly. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. To your point, everything you said, 100% valid. I think it's really important for campus leaders to know like who is running in their community, what is their track record, what are they standing for. I know that Prairie View has actually I don't know about now, but when I was there, we actually spent time inviting councilmen, mayor candidates, so on and so forth. And if your campus community isn't already doing that, I think that's a really good idea. Invite them to sit down and talk to the students. What do you want? What are you going to do different for us? What's the long term of your candidacy? What does that look like? What are the impacts? Like ask those questions. I know while I was NAACP, part of the why we shook the room a little bit was because we were going beyond the politics. We were having sheriffs come and talk to us. We were going, or beyond the politicians, we were having the sheriffs come and talk to us. Just different community leaders. We were having open discussions. There was, Prairie View is really known for the Sandra Bland, what happened there. And there was a lot of concerns of students. And so we actually had a panel with campus police, Waller PD, all of that. And we were able to ask our questions. Do not be scared, do not be intimidated, make sure that the questions that you're asking, that you have expectations. And as she mentioned, hold them accountable.
So I'm Ashton Whittington. I'm from Texas A&M Galveston.
Mhm.
So I just want to share a little bit of a perspective from our campus, and then I have a question for you, Genesis. So
Okay.
Texas A&M Galveston is obviously like off Galveston. So you come on to Galveston from that big bridge. And then Texas A&M Galveston is actually a small island off of Galveston with one road and one bridge connecting to it. So yeah, so with our university specifically, when we have people come out and talk to us, there's one problem aside from they're just like, oh, we're gonna do a lot of things for the students. It's like, that's great. The bridge connecting our campus to everything else in the world is falling apart right now. And so they come and they're like, yeah, we got to fix that bridge. And they're like, we got to get a timeline for that. And so that's just like one really unique aspect of our university. So my question for you, Genesis, is in your time throughout college, in your undergrad, you were an SGA, right? And
Yes.
apart from other organizations, how did you use that position and that like passing resolutions and stuff like that, that your SGA could do? How did you use that to benefit your campus at large and stuff like that?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part? You cut out just a tad.
Sure. So how did you use your position to benefit the campus, like infrastructure as well as the students?
So I think with me, everything that I wanted to do it in collaboration. So it was never just SGA or it was never just NAACP. For me and what I primarily focused on organizing. If it was in regards to infrastructure, I was in the architecture building. Hey, what organizations do you guys have here? How have you guys partnered with engineering? I think that collaboration is definitely key because it's not going to take just one team. It's not going to take just one person. So definitely keep that in mind whenever you're gathering your student organizations, like, hey, we have this and we think that we have this problem. We think that these teams could collaborate perfectly. Let me know your thoughts. Always be open to that feedback because again, it's going to be different organizations. It's going to be different perspectives. And also to your point about the community leaders coming in and saying, there's this problem, we're going to fix it. How are you guys holding them accountable? There's timelines, but how are you guys being fully active into the community that they're almost, I don't want to say that they're intimidated by you guys, but they know, okay, they're not going to play with us. We have to be serious about our business. It's going to take some time. It's going to be challenging, but again, you bring all those teams together, that's going to be very significant in your approach.
Thank you.
So I'm also from Texas A&M Galveston, and I have another question about our campus. So our campus, we were trying to become a polling place, and we asked the local government, and they told us no, and they didn't give it any reason why. And then we found out there's a lawsuit against Galveston County for gerrymandering from the Justice Department. So do you have any advice for us to advocate for a polling place on our campus and who we should talk to, what we should do to make this happen.
Yes, so I know that when I was at Prairie View, that we had polls, they took them away, brought them back. It was a lot of back and forth between elections. And the students, it was very, very frustrating. We organized a march to the polls, which was the city hall. That may look a little bit different for you guys, being that you're on an island, so I don't recommend that. But I would say don't stop. Don't stop at your first no. Don't stop at your second no. Have you guys ever historically, have you had polls on your campus at all?
Yes, we had them and then they took them away. So we were trying to get them back and then they said no.
Okay, so I do not remember the exact steps that we took because there was a lot of runaround. I can tell you we didn't stop at our second no, our third no. It took multiple tries. But again, if you do this in collaboration with your other organizations, with your colleagues, that's going to be significant in that approach as well. And you will be able to eventually have those polls. And don't be discouraged. Definitely do not be discouraged. It happens. It happened at Prairie View. It's happening at your university, and I'm sure it happens elsewhere. And actually, what I can do for you is I can backtrack into my emails and see what were some of the people that we reached out to, what we did, because at the top of my head, unfortunately, I don't remember, but I can collect that information for you. Just get my contact from Shirley, and we'll be able to revisit that, and I'll be able to help you a little bit with that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? I'll stand right here so she can see me, so she doesn't seem like there's like some voice off the distance talking. But hi y'all, my name is Dylan, here with Texas A&M San Antonio. But I wanted to speak a little bit on kind of the situation that Galveston you guys are finding yourself in about trying to bring something to the attention of administration that is an issue, that everybody on campus kind of realizes is a thing. If you have electeds coming on the campus and bringing it up to you guys, then obviously a lot of people are going to know about it. Kind of had a similar example in my experience at a community college in San Antonio, at San Antonio College. We had a really popular newspaper, a publication that had, to be frank, a racist mascot that we wanted to get rid of, and something that we were able to do, our student government was able to do, on which I was serving vice president, was collaborate with other organizations, just like Ms. Gibbons exemplified, and went to the table with our administration over and over and over again. And one of the things I wanted to express was that power that you can sort of express as a student body when you come together with other organizations is something to be named and something that isn't forgotten by administration. So I really like what she said about not being discouraged, right? Because it's not going to happen the first time. It's not going to happen the second time, probably. It took the student government at San Antonio College 4 or 5 years of going to the table with the administration saying, hey, we want to change this mascot. We need to change this mascot. This is why everybody says so. It's pretty much agreed upon. And it can be easy to get discouraged down that road, but I promise you that if you keep trying, if you keep asking, and if you bring other students into that fold through a lens of equity and through a lens of discussion and discourse, then you'll do and you'll accomplish what you want to get accomplished on that campus. You just have to keep trying and have to keep trying. I say that because if you don't hear like another example of an SGA or something similar actually getting a W on a campus, it can be really easy to be like, why are we kind of even doing this work on campus if nothing is even going to get done? So I say that and I share that because I felt the exact same way until they changed the mascot at San Antonio College after like 100 years of having the same mascot for, like I said, a really, really long time. So I encourage you to keep going on that path, especially for the bridge. Like it's a public safety issue, right? Like I know there's going to be other organizations on campus who are going to take you up on that offer to be able to put together a meeting with whatever administration you need to be able to get that done. So just wanted to encourage you to like keep going down that road and also reach out to anybody and everybody you can. I think you guys are already like going down that line of asking questions. Like if you're asking them in summits like this, I'm sure you guys have asked a lot of other people before this. So good job for that. And yeah, don't be afraid to reach out and just know that it'll work eventually. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Dylan, for that perspective. And to your point about the public safety issue, typically there's associations, licensing, things like that associated with public health. It's very common actually, and even with infrastructure. I would also recommend seeing who supports that and taking your ideas there. Oftentimes there's community town hall meetings. If you can get your student leaders, community leaders to represent you at those town halls, that's also a very good step, a very good approach in getting your voice heard, especially about the issues that affect your day-to-day lives.
Hi, Ms. Genesis. My name is Regina Petty, and I'm with TCC Arlington. I'm also a judge at polling place 705. My question to you is, how do we get students to get more involved in voting due to the fact that college is stressful enough for the students? Oh, I work admin with Dr. Frost at TCC too. Due to the rising cost of gas, students having different finals due, how do we get them more interested in voting at the polling on different election days? Because as I said, I'm a judge at a polling place, and it's very rare that we have students to come in and vote. What can we do to encourage voting?
I can definitely say that there's a lot of barriers, there's a lot of disconnect, but I think that the work does not start at the polls. It's well before that. I think that getting the students engaged in their community is a very big start. So, that looks different across the board. Communities have different needs, but if you can get students, to kind of ignite what they're passionate about, getting work done in the community, that's a really big start, because when these discussions are going to be held and there's going to be campaigns going on, they're going to have a little bit more insight of what's actually going on. They're going to be more motivated to make it to the polls. However, I do know that there's barriers, as you mentioned, such as gas, finals, so on and so forth. But that's where our student leaders can step in. That's an opportunity for you guys to work on bringing polls to the campus. Or maybe if you guys have a shuttle, you can go to administration and say, we want to use this shuttle on this day from this time to this time to get students to the polls. Be creative, be innovative, and definitely encourage your students to be engaged in the community.
Hi, my name is Danica Escobedo. I'm the Democracy Engagement Manager. I was a Democracy Fellow for about a year. That's just a little background. So I have kind of multiple questions, but one to answer one of those questions, I also have connection with VIA to the polls. So there's VIA buses transitions to the polls as well. And that's like another way that I allow students to know like there's other ways to get to polling sites. And then, so I guess that brings me back to another question. I guess my first question. So the thing is that we have continuously fought to try to get a polling site. And we finally were a polling site, but there was so much, I guess, backtrack and continuously fighting to get a polling site here at basically our newest university to the A&M system. And so I guess my question is to you, one of my first questions is, how did you continue on that fight? How did you, I guess, break that boundary between, okay, I know you said there's like a lot of steps, but I guess my thing is like, what was that first step like towards really getting, because it was, now we're finally a polling site. Now it's like almost like we're gonna get it taken away again. It's only during presidential elections, only certain elections, because, oh, you don't have that many students coming to your polling site. There's another closer side, they get way more numbers than you do. So how do you continue to on that first step at your university? How did you do that?
So that's a really good question, and thank you for the background. I think that recently, maybe within the past I want to say 2 to 3 years, but honestly, it may be 1 to 2. I think that Prairie View has had a little bit, just a tad bit of an advantage because we had our community leaders go on to be city councilmen. So building those relationships with your councilman, your sheriff, your even your mayor, as I mentioned earlier, having them come out and speak, knowing that way they know that, okay, these students are serious, like it's bigger than what we're thinking. Relationships are very, very important in this. They're very important. They're not going to go away. And essentially you should just want them to get better. So I think that us having that relationship with those councilmen reduced a little bit of the barriers. It didn't eliminate them in any way, but knowing that we had people kind of on our side working towards the same vision was very helpful. So if you guys already don't know who your councilman is, I highly recommend that. I highly encourage you building those relationships.
All right, can we give another round of applause for Genesis? I'm gonna switch this camera back over so you can see me, so I'm not a nameless, like a Thank you so much. Thank you for answering all of our questions and all the things that you have done, your time, your insight. Like we so appreciate all the work you have done, all the work I'm sure you will continue to do. And thank you for just pouring out that knowledge. If Shirley also could raise her hand real quick, because Genesis said, if you need some contacts, come to her. Shirley also connected us. So thank you, Shirley, for connecting us and making this happen today as well. Shirley's also been part of our planning team meeting. So I'm going to give her that shout out. She didn't say that, but she's helped put this together as well. So without further ado, we're going to take a small, literally about a 5-minute break so we can set up for our next section. We're going to have some great presentations from leaders at different campuses, so you get some more feedback about what different schools have been doing. And again, let's thank Genesis. You are welcome to stay on or get some rest or do whatever. We just appreciate you so much. Thank you. So we're going to take a 5-minute break at this time.
Thank you everyone for having me.
Bit about the work that they're doing and what they're working on, and kind of hopefully inspire some ideas for y'all. These 5 campuses were award recipients from our previous voting summit. So I really hope that y'all grab some awesome information from these. I'm super proud of all of my fellows who are working on these, and I appreciate y'all very much. So without further ado, I want to introduce our first presentation on behalf of Texas State Bobcats Votes, CJ Satina.
Can y'all hear me? All right, awesome. All right, I'm CJ Satina. Do I need the microphone? Oh, okay. All right, I go to Texas State University. There it is. There's a picture of our old main. If you could see the building right there. Texas State is 30 minutes south of here. It's currently home to over 38,000 students. Every year, our freshman class keeps getting bigger and bigger. I can bet y'all $10 on that for next year. We also are a Hispanic serving institute. Like 40% of our population is Latinos, and like 40% is Latinos, like 42 is Caucasian, 10% is Black. And what's new with Campus Vote Project at Texas State is that we're changing the infrastructure of Campus Vote Project so we could receive more attention with the help of a new advisor. And that's how we got Bobcat Votes, the Baby of Campus Vote project, to raise voter awareness, emphasize more on civic engagement, education, and remind people of their voting rights. So in the 2020 election, we registered over 1,000 students to vote during the pandemic. Yeah, we encourage voter registration in the box, which was pre-made kits for volunteers during the pandemic. We distribute flyers via social media from the Texas State's website, encourage professors to post walks to the polls, emphasize on voters weekly, and distributed flyers across campus with information about candidates, voting information, phone numbers. We also had town halls with candidates. I was part of that. It was amazing. We also had a really successful drive up registration with several organizations like MOVE and Texas Rising and Ignite. And this led to record breaking turnout in Hays County, like for the fastest growing county, according to the census for the past 10 years. This is amazing. We had big turnout. So for this year's elections, we want to do more like reaching out to Greek Live, doing party at the polls, do more voter registration days, especially like on the deadlines to go vote. We want to have more literature drop off often on campus, especially since Texas State, we have majority students living off campus, like in apartments, or more of a commuter school. Like the only people that live on campus is just freshmen. Having a big social media presence, we notice that so many students are on like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, like having more awareness on those social media platforms, and also do more trainings and collaborations with Bobcat Votes, continue to work with the Dean of Students, the Institutional Inclusive Excellent Department, which is the IIE at Texas State, the Political Science Department, to ensure that students are exposed to our literature and get more information and like create a partnership with other like-minded organizations at Texas State. And lastly, also like continue our relationship with the county office and commissioners, make sure we have a polling location. It's like I'm hearing similar echoes from other people here, like it's always a fight, make sure we have a polling location at our university. It's become like a partisan issue, sadly, with like Republicans saying there should not be a polling location at Texas State because they're gonna vote Democratic. And we also just have a weird power struggle at our county commissioners. But we've been able to get a polling location for the past couple elections, crossing our fingers. We still have it for November. And just creating bonds with our elected officials to matching our previous success rates, and not just voter registration, but also voter education. And also creating these voter registration in a box toolkits with including voter registration, including Spanish, and it will equal awesome stuff in the future.
Thank you so much, CJ. Next, I want to introduce Austin's very own University of Texas students, Scott and Raina.
Hi guys, I'm Raina.
Morning, I'm Scott, and today we're going to talk to you guys about Texas Votes. So Texas Votes is a nonpartisan, non-advocacy civic engagement organization at UT Austin. Our goal is to institutionalize voting at UT Austin. The main way we do that is through the things that are listed on this slide. The first of that being classroom presentations. So as a nonpartisan, non-advocacy organization, I think there's a lot of civic engagement organizations on campus at UT. but we have the credibility of not being advocates. And I think that allows us credibility with a lot of professors, which allows us to enter classrooms where we do presentations on voter education and voter registration. We have classroom presentations before each voter registration deadline, telling people, here's how you register to vote, and then also walking them through the process of how you go to the polls. What are the voter ID laws? What are you voting on? Things of that nature. UT is a really big campus. A lot of people don't live on campus. So we found that one of the most equitable ways to find voters is to reach them directly in classrooms.
So when we can't physically get to these classrooms, we also have Canvas modules. And so for those of you who don't know, Canvas is kind of like the platform our school uses to spread information from professors for their classes. And so we basically created our own Canvas module, which has all our resources on there so that if we can't get to these students' classrooms, they can go look on these Canvas modules and see, how they can get registered and like what they need to bring to the polls. And it also just allows people to continue checking back when it gets closer to election season so that they have this information. And so another thing that we do is we table a lot. We're always on campus somewhere. And so tabling kind of comes in two aspects. There's the tabling for voter registration, and then there's the tabling for voter education. So obviously we're out for like last day to register to vote. And just, during that registration season, we did a major push when it came to move-in. So we got all the freshmen and going to like Gone to Texas, which is one of our big freshman kind of orientation events. And then we also do voter education through our tabling. And so this is like first day of early voting, and we table throughout the week of early voting. And then on election day, we'll pretty much have resources. We'll point people to Vote 411 or the League of Women Voters guide. And we basically say like, look, this is what's going to be on the ballot, so you are informed before you go and vote.
Yeah, like Raina said, one of the big things we focus on is voter education. One aspect of that is our Civic Engagement Alliance, which is basically UT has a lot of organizations. We try to find one representative from each group to have deputized the registrar, and we also attend their meetings and present at different organizations' meetings to tell them about the process of registering to vote and actually going to the polls. And also the Civic Engagement Alliance deals with a voter-friendly campus plan, writing that, which is like writing out our goals, having them written to keep Texas's voting rate high. Also, we've had some media outreach. So we've been written a lot about by the Daily Texan, been featured in other outlets, including like CNN, the Wall Street Journal. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so looking more internally, Texas Votes also has a few committees. Some of these are like the STEM committee, and their goal is to really reach out to the STEM students because that's where we've seen we have a gap in our NSOL data. And there's also committees like digital. So we have a newsletter that goes out to students who would like to keep updated with Texas Votes and what we do. And then there's like the events committee, which Scott and I are currently the co-chairs of. And so we plan some great events like Talkers and Trivia, and we figure out like white roses for tabling on election day, et cetera, et cetera. And so like Scott said, we also do part of the campus planning alongside the Civic Engagement Alliance. And so this really just helps us figure out like what we look back on the year, we figure out like where we are and what we can continue to improve on. Yeah, so one of the things that's kind of involved in our campus planning is looking at our data and looking at our results. And so just looking at NSOL data, we saw a 5.1% increase from 2016 in our registration rate. And we saw a 17.7% increase from 2016 to 2020 in our voting rate. And so we're really proud of these numbers. And I think it really shows the work that we put in these last few years.
Our numbers are so high, we've actually won some awards. So we have the highest voter rate in the Big 12. We hope that continues once we join the SEC. So that'll be interesting. And then we also have been finalists for Swing Out Awards, which are local on-campus awards at UT, and yeah, we're finalists for those. We visited 79 classrooms in 2021, which was great. And also, like Raina said, during the beginning of the year, they had a big push. We actually weren't in Texas Votes then, which proves really they did a great job of not only registering almost 1,200 voters, but also getting other people to join the organization. And then on the last day to register to vote, October 4th, the UT Voting Coalition, meaning us and other organizations on campus that were registering people to vote, we registered over 700 voters. So that was great.
Yeah, so now it's kind of like, what are we looking forward to? And so the biggest point is probably continuing the work that we're doing right now with tabling, with events, et cetera, and then also sustaining our numbers. So we kind of realized that like we're reaching a point where we just want to keep our registration rate this high, and we want to continue to make sure that like every incoming freshman class also gets registered. So we're going to see more pushes and like the move-in time again. And then one of our other goals is increasing student membership. So even at UT, because it's a huge school and there's a lot of organizations students can join, it's really hard to keep membership retention up, and it's really hard to get people committed to Texas Votes over like other political organizations. And so one thing we're really trying to do this upcoming year is just to focus on like recruitment events and figuring out how we can get people to come to our meetings and continuously show up and be there to help.
Yeah, and also our work, we're going to continue to use the tools we have to close the gap. So at UT, we know the highest voting rate is among education majors. The lowest ones are among STEM students. We're working on that, having events with our STEM committee, trying to expand voting for everyone and even out our numbers. Like Raina said, we're also trying to increase our membership. I think one part of doing that is expanding the CEA. There's a ton of organizations on UT's campus, which makes it difficult to find people because they have so many options on where to go. But our goal obviously would be to make the CEA larger and hopefully increase our membership. You look at this photo, it looks like we have a lot of members. That was our first meeting. Not that many people show up. So like if you have friends at UT, tell them to join. So yeah, that's gonna be what we're looking forward to. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome, awesome. That's pretty impressive. 79 classrooms it was in 2021. That's awesome, y'all. I want to proudly introduce our next two students from my own university, Texas Lutheran University. I'd like to welcome Chase and Isabella.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chase Bell.
Hello, my name is Isabella Shar, and as Jenna said, we are from Texas Lutheran University, and we do have the lovely Jenna actually graduating in 6 days. Can we give her a round of applause? Balancing all of this and about to graduate. Oh my goodness. So who we are is we are a very small private university in Seguin, Texas. When I mean small, 1,500 at best total. Yeah, wow. We were founded in 1891 originally as Texas College, but since then we have expanded. So just to kind of touch on our voting climate here at TLU, we have TLU Votes, which kind of encompasses the TLU Voter Coalition, which meets once a month, and the Democracy Fellows, me, Chase. We serve as student leaders who are just trying to educate our peers about civic engagement, getting registered to vote, and it's something we're really passionate about. Just to kind of touch on our NSOLV data, we have had a really great increase, 21.1% change from 2016, just looking at our 2020 data. Looking forward in the future, we hope that those numbers continue to increase, being that our student population is very small. Even the smallest change really reflects well in these numbers right here.
All right, so for deliberative dialogues, in the past, we've had discussions on Zoom virtually. One of them was in November. It was called A House Divided, and we just talked about the American political system and what we would like to give up in order to like compromise and get the system that we want. And it was a really like good and interesting conversation, and a lot of people like showed up and stuff and on the Zoom. It was very interesting. And so now currently we're just talking about what's on the ballot coming for the elections coming up, and just trying to get people to know like who they're voting for, what like going through every single thing that they're voting on, and just trying to inform them on what's going on and like what they're voting for. And so we do this thing called Party at the Polls on election day. I think all you guys probably do it too. We just hang out at the party. We gave out cupcakes this last time. Yeah, we gave out cupcakes, and we just hung out at the parties. It was pretty interesting. As you can see in that picture down there on the bottom right, and that's us giving out cupcakes. So yeah, for voter registration, the main thing we want to focus on is getting our VDR training so we can go out and register people to vote. And just the biggest thing is just getting people registered at our school, because for some reason they just don't care. I don't know why. We're trying to really turn it around, but it's hard. I know you guys know it's hard to get people, especially young college students, Gen Z. We don't like to vote for some reason, but we're trying. So, and lastly, for opportunities with local elections, so in our county, they pay $10 an hour to work at the polls. So a lot of people are very interested in that. And we try to get that out there, get the word out there, the messaging out there so people can sign up and get some money while also being active in your civic duty and civic engagement.
So something we're doing, kind of touching on what he was just talking about to increase student engagement, is Firstly, classroom visits. We weren't able to do this last fall, but we have what's called FREX, it's freshman experience. All freshmen are required to take this class. There's several classes, several professors that teach these classes. And so as we move towards in-person classes this coming fall, something we want to continue doing that we weren't able to do last time was get people involved in voter registration on campus by showing up to these classrooms. That's actually how I got registered to vote when I was a freshman. And now that I'm VDR trained myself, this is something I'm going to be participating in the fall and kind of passing that on to the students. And I was once in that position. So that's something really big that we want to do. We want to continue our events that we've found successful, like what's on the ballot. Like you said, just helping our students form a voting plan, educating them on what exactly is on the ballot, whatever election it may be, what those rules include, how that plays a part in student life and the political climate, and who exactly even at times is running anyways. Party at the polls is a big one as well. We want to continue doing. We find better success in tabling events rather than holding events in a classroom that students have to go to. But when we put ourselves in areas that they're already frequently passing through, like student centers, that's where we feel we have more success. And I think it was Andy that said yesterday that when you just kind of just talk to people like, hey, what's up, before you actually get into your topic, want a cupcake? That's part of the reason we want to continue doing things like tabling. Deliberate dialogues, hopefully that can also move in person. As Chase said, we had been doing that on Zoom, and just to kind of engage students in civil discourse, whatever topic that may be at the moment. We want to also keep promoting social media outreach. We have a really large population of students that are commuters on our campus, and so maybe they're not always so informed on what exactly is going on. But when we post on our social media with our student affairs account, the Center for Student Leadership, posting through there and just letting students know that this is what's coming up. There'll be food, incentives, which is also something funding will help us do a lot, is to get more than just food. A lot of our bigger organizations have the opportunity to design t-shirts, and that's something we want to get towards as well, especially kind of getting that towards student and staff to come. We found that staff like to come to things like the deliberate dialogues and the voter coalition meetings as well. And just to have merchandise for the students, more incentives, because students love free stuff, and that's kind of something we're continuing to work towards. And yeah, that's it. Thank you guys.
Thanks so much. And thank you for that shout out, Izzy. You made me blush in front of everybody. I'm super excited to introduce our next group of students. We have two more schools. Our next school is going to be University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley, UTRGV. I'm going to introduce Osvaldo and Jaylene.
So hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Osvaldo, that's CLN. We're students from the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. So what is UTRGV, you may ask? So we're down in the deep of South Texas. You know where that star is. We're right next to the border. We're a border town region. UTRGV is home to 32,000 students. And a difference between us and a lot of universities is that we're a two-campus institute. So we're based off in Edinburgh and Bronzo. Those two cities are an hour away from each other. So anything that we do, it's double. So imagine a polling place. There has to be two. Of what a registration drive, everything has to be double. So just imagine how that is. And not only that, we are a super Hispanic serving institute, top 5 in the nation. So just imagine how many Hispanic students we have in our university. And also, that's basically who we are. So just this is a little bit about what we have to offer and to show you all on our civic engagement efforts on our campus.
So now I'm gonna present as like who we are. So we are the Civic Engagement Alliance. We are an organization under the Department of Student Activities. So basically we get paid to do this, but we have fun doing it. He is the president and I am the vice president of community engagement. The Civic Engagement Alliance is a nonpartisan initiative which unites political and non-political student organizations and individuals in campus. We focus on 3 main topics. We focus on community engagement, voting, as well as education. So we like to expand further than voting and just voter registration, and it'll show in the events, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. We don't just do tabling, we kind of like try to do big international events where we kind of introduce voting a little to get students more excited, to get students to realize that we're not just about registering them to vote. We're about like allowing them to educate themselves and allowing them the opportunity to educate others as well.
As you see on the following points, some accomplishments that we have had is our polling place location on both campuses. So how I said earlier, we're a two-campus institute. On our Edinburgh campus, that is Hidalgo County, and our Bronzeville campus, that's Cameron County. So as well have to deal with two counties. So we've had a lot of luck that in our Edinburgh campus, we've always had a polling place. However, that is not the same issue with our Bronzeville campus, which is in Cameron County. So therefore, this past summer, we worked very closely with the Office of Government and Community Relations on our campus to fend and fight for a polling place in our Bronzeville campus. And for this past election, we were lucky enough that that was able to come true. So it was the first time since the start of UTRGV in 2015 that we've had two polling places on both campuses. So we hope that that keeps on going for this upcoming gubernatorial election in November. And that's just a bit about what we did, as well Vaqueros Vote. So I know every single school has their own coalition. So we have Vaqueros Vote. As y'all see here, we have our mascot, El Vaquero. So from that picture, a little bit of context is since we are an HSI, we had a civic loteria. I don't know if y'all know what loteria is, but the CEA, we created our custom-made loteria cards tailored to voter registration and civics. As you see here, we have El Vaquero, El Voto, la tarjeta para registrarte para votar. So that's like a voter registration card. So we made a fun twist to civics and voting to get that larger interaction. And that's one of our first events that we had this past school year, and that helped kick off a year of civic engagement and voter registration. So not only do we have a voter registration drive while that loteria, students also play loteria, and thanks to part of the funding that we received through Campus Votes Project, we were able to provide food and an inflatable. So just imagine how big that event was, and it was perfect to kick off the school year and establish one of our main civic engagement efforts on campus. Another thing is Act Now. So Act Now is an alliance, an association that down there in the Rio Grande Valley, that is a community-based organization that focuses on voter registration and as well as nonpartisan, non-advocacy. So we work very closely with them and the university to provide voter information and voter education efforts to our university, as well with the Campus Votes Project. So I'm the first democracy fellow from UTRGV. It's the first time that we have something like that there on our campus. So we're very excited to see how that collaboration goes into fruition within the coming years, as well as civic ambassadors. So within our organization, we have our members. So when our members become very active within our organization and help become themselves VDRs or help with the voter registration drives, they become civic ambassadors within the CEA. And this really helps us retain our members and keep on fluctuating that amount of membership that we have within our organization. And what is a CEA ambassador? Basically what they do is they help us out during our events. They become VDRs themselves, and they help lead our voter registration efforts on campus. And that doesn't go into like unnoticed, because then when they graduate, they receive a graduation memorabilia and a stamp of approval, you know, that they're part of our organization.
One of the last things I will mention on this slide is that not only do we reach out to the students within our university, we also like to reach out throughout the valley in every single high school seniors. So one of the things that we did this past semester is that we held like virtual VDR, like not VDR trainings, but it was like we taught them how they could register to vote. We like told them the places that they could go. We even told them how they could become VDRs. And we were so thankful that a lot of high schools allowed us to do this. We registered a bunch of kids, well, a bunch of seniors to register to vote. And this just helps us not only attract them to UTRGV, but we're a big school that has a lot of dual enrollment. So a lot of those kids are already on campus, and the fact that they're already registered to vote just helps our mission a lot.
So to continue on to our next slide, our voting rate increased 12.5% from 2016, which we see as a huge amount considering that we now have a polling place on our other campus. And not only that, some of the awards that we got the Gold Campus seal of approval from the All In Challenge in 2018, as well we were in the top 50 campuses in the US that participate in TurboVote. So I don't know if y'all have knowledge on what TurboVote is. However, TurboVote is an online platform that eases 3/4 of the voter registration process. So as y'all found out on the Kahoot yesterday, Texas does not allow for people to register to vote fully online. However, TurboVote does ease out 3/4 of that voter registration process. So in a lot of our events that we have, we offer that QR code. We have it everywhere. We email it to students. We put it on Blackboard. I don't know y'all know what Blackboard is, but thanks to the very nice collaboration that we have with the Dean of Students Office and the Office of Government Relations, they're very easy on us sending information like this to students. And as well, to add a little bit of context to the images, the writer is our school's newspaper, and that was one of our first main voter registration drives that we had this past school year. As well, here we have children that we promoted to, like take care of your earth, so we promoted, recycling, not polluting and all that good stuff. So as you see, the Civic Engagement Alliance focuses a lot more than just voting, but we always find a way to put voting into these events and these initiatives.
So our mission is accomplished, like I said, in 3 different ways: community engagement, education, and voting. And some of those examples include, I myself made an International Women's Day luncheon, which will be held annually, where it's held on both campuses at the same time. Kind of hectic, but it went good. We have speakers, they come and they talk. This year's speakers were from the president's office, and although they didn't really talk a lot about voting in one way or another, people knew that the Civic Engagement Alliance was doing the event. People knew that at the end of the day, they will learn something about voting and voter registration. We have Veterans Day, Veterans Week, which was what we held this year, not just the Veterans Day. We have Kindness Week, which is a whole other big thing. And then we have small initiatives, such as right now, back at campus, I have a bottle cap collection. This is the 2nd year that we do it. People love it. People are just like, okay, let me throw it. So it's like little things like that that get the attention on our organization, and they realize that they can do all these other things and not just sit down like at a table and talk to people, which is great. But these other events also allow us to have that one-on-one interaction. Through our voting committee, which is our vice president of education, we were able to do even bigger things. So one of the bigger things that we had was the state of the Rio Grande Valley. And in there, we had a leadership panel with all sorts of student leaders. We had student government leaders, we have campus activities programming board, we had the president for the Student Government Association, we had another one of our representatives, and students were able to go sit down, ask them questions that you wouldn't normally ask whenever you see them walking around campus. They were also able to get out of the conference, and they were tabling, like a lot of departments tabled, and they were able to connect with all sorts of departments. So not only were they able to learn about us, but they were also able to learn about all these other things that the campus offers. One of the other bigger things that the education did was the Meet the Candidate series. We were able to have a mayor forum earlier in the fall semester, and that was virtual, but it went great. And it wasn't just a forum where the mayor candidates came and they just talked about their plan. We gave them the questions. We gave them the questions that students wanted answered. And then afterwards, if more questions came up, students had the opportunity to say hey, you didn't answer this question. Can you answer this? And we thought that was great. So then we decided to do it for the gubernatorial representatives. And we had both Joy Diaz and Beto come to campus. And although it was kind of hard to convince candidates such as Beto to do a sit down type of interview, we still were able to get it done. And I think people and students loved the fact that they were finally able to sit down with him and kind of ask him questions and not just have them just preaching on and on about what they're doing. Lastly, we have our voting committee, which is he does more of the basic tabling stuff and VDR trainings. So with our voting vice president, you will see more of let's sit down, let's table, let's talk about, let's educate you more on what's on the ballot, on what you need to register to vote. So we do all those big things, but at the end of the day, we come back and wrap it up and say this is also our mission.
So to finalize our presentation with our final slide, the future of Texas. So that's the slogan that UTRGV has, as we're one of the first UT system schools in the 21st century. So what they consist of for the future of civic engagement efforts on our campus. We hope to continue with the Meet the Candidate series. As Yalen just said, we did start it off this past school year, and we saw it, we had a large engagement numbers in those events, and students really loved the fact that they got to sit down and hear from the candidates that were going to represent our communities, one way or another. So that was one of the things that we did as with the State of the Rio Grande Valley Conference. As Yalen said, we had a lot of components to it, governmental entities, tabling, as with the student leadership panel. But not only that, we also had a voter registration drive going on at the same time through our collaboration with Act Now and Texas Rising and Vaqueros Vote. So you see, we like to cultivate the collaborations that we have there at UTRGV to greater impact the civic engagement efforts that we have on our campus. And not only that, how my partner said, the International Women's Day, Kindness Week, and our Boots to the Ballot, which are Get Out the Vote effort. So since the vaquero is our mascot, we did our Boots to the Ballot effort. So I know y'all say party to the polls or something along those lines. Ours is titled Boots to the Ballot, and it's this Western themed type of event that goes with the spirit of our school. And we implemented it in a way where we had red, white, and blue cupcakes. We had this Western theme going on there outside of the polling place to get the students ongoing and out to vote. So as you see along the line, these pictures, we have our VDR training. Every single person that got VDR'd through the events that we hosted, they received that button. This is register to vote with me. So students that are part of our organization, they receive that button. And when they're at the voter registration drives, they wear that button with pride, and students know that they can register to vote with them. And not only that as well, one of our first voter registration drives here with our collaborators from Act Now was at the Stomp, which is a huge signature event that we have at UTRGV. It's a really big concert at the baseball field. We luckily registered a lot of students to vote there as well. So long story short, as we have down here, the definition of civic engagement expands further more than voting and voter registration. So we thank you all for your attention today and for your time.
Thank y'all so much. That was awesome. And it's really good to hear about all of the work that you guys are doing. Our final presentation is Southwestern University, and I'm excited to introduce Rachel and Josh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Josh. I'm a junior. I'm a political science major and a history minor. I'm the former president of Kappa Sigma. I'm a lead ambassador. I do some other things on campus as well.
Hi, I'm Rachel Thompson. I'm a junior. I'm the president of the Coalition for Diversity and Social Justice, and we're both a part of SU Votes.
So a little quick information about Southwestern. We were established in 1840, making us the oldest institution of higher learning in the state of Texas. I'm also the lead ambassador for the admissions office, so this is why I know so much. We are 1,500 strong, and we actually do have a long history of voting rights and voting education on Southwestern. One of our alumni, Jessie Daniel Ames, was the first woman to establish the League of Women Voters in Texas. So a little bit about SU Votes. We're a voting coalition, so we're not actually part of the Student Activities Office. But we're a coalition of different groups on campus. We have the Coalition of Diversity and Social Justice on our campus represented, Greek life, athletics. I think we're getting some STEM people in as we continue on, but we're all just trying to work to make sure that we're all increasing voting, civic engagement, all the buzzwords that we've been saying today. Oh, so it's still me. Thought we'd share some of the things that we do to try to increase our civic engagement around campus. So one of the things that we've started doing is going to our first year seminars. First year seminars are for mandatory first year classes for all the incoming students to take. They're little half classes the first semester that they come in, including transfer students as well. Covers a wide range of topics. But by coming into these classrooms, we can talk to them about what SU Votes does and get them registered to vote. We have all these people in one place. We can target all of our first years at once. And whenever I have my little speech and have all the voting guides right there and all the voting forms to get them registered, I'm able to pass out all of them pretty much every time I've been in a classroom. I also work with Eugenia over there to make sure that all of these places are covered. It wasn't just me going around to 20 different classrooms or something like that. But we saw a very high success rate of people taking the forms, filling them out, and getting them filled in.
So this past March, we had pizza at the polls. We worked with SGA, Greek Life, CDSJ, and other student organizations. And we worked with TCA, which is Texas Civic Ambassadors, and they helped fund, I see Cole in the back. They helped fund us to have about 20 pizzas from 600 Degrees Pizzas. And we were able to give out t-shirts, stickers, water bottles that said New Politics Forum, and we were able to stand right outside the polling place legally and give out all of these free things. So a little bit about us. In 2016, we had a 84% registration rate and a 51% voting rate. And in 2020, all of this increased about 20%. So we have 90% of students registered to vote and about a 70% voting rate. And so in 4 years, we plan to be about 95% because all of the FYS presentations, we continue to we plan to continue to keep that going, and we hope to have a 75% voting rate. We plan to target high potential student groups like athletes, STEM majors, liberal arts and humanities, all of those majors, and bring them into our coalition. That's it. That's it. Yeah, we're done.
Just so we are aware, I'm gonna walk over here so I don't have to do the camera real quick. Can we give another round of applause for our speakers? Man, it takes a lot to present and share your work to a crowd, especially on day 2 of a summit early in the morning. So I appreciate all the energy, the ideas, and everything that has been shared. What we have next as well is, in a moment, we are going to start our breakout rooms after a break, but after my instructions. So this is where your handy dandy, I used to watch Blue's Clues with my little brother a lot. Y'all are gonna hear handy dandy. I teared up when he came and gave his little message. I'm sorry, I'm an elder millennial, so I'll say that. Not saying geriatric, elder. So with that, I do want to say both to our virtual attendees as well as the people in the room how our breakout rooms will go. However, if you, after the break, are like, what is all that stuff Bianca said earlier because I was tired or I needed more coffee and I just heard wah, 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 that's okay. We have people that will help you during the breakout. You will not be lost. Don't worry. So first and foremost, all our breakouts will be on the second floor. So if you are up here with me in an empty room, you are in the wrong place. And I will be like, no, go downstairs. So virtual attendees, I'm speaking to you first. Virtual attendees, you will be rotating also. I will be moving you around. Consider me your virtual escort. If I see you in the main room, I will send you to the correct breakout room. And you will be with group 1. My group 1 is virtual, which is why none of you should have a 1 on your tag. If you do, please see us because you are not in cyberspace right now. You are here. This is not the Matrix. So if your tag has a 1, please see us so we can change it to a 2 or a 3 if you are in the room with me now. Virtual attendees, you will be moving around virtually as well, breakout to breakout, and you will start with room 1. I will go over these breakout topics in a moment. They're also on your agenda. Your tag is telling you what group you're rotating with. So you have a 2, you're gonna be with the 2s. You have a 3, you're gonna be with the 3s, and you're gonna move in numerical order. So if you're group 2, then you will go to 3, and then you will time travel and go back to 1, okay? So it's basically 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's how we're moving around. Again, we will have people to help you. You don't have to memorize any of this. If it doesn't make sense, it's okay. It didn't make sense to me about 2 days ago. I figured it out. So group 1, breakout room 1, which again, everything's on the second floor, so people will help you. It's gonna be action planning. We have like a great presenter named Matthew Gamble, who's gonna talk you through the steps of making these plans, action planning, and getting feedback. Perhaps a lot of you have done some form of action planning, whether you called it that or not. Trust me, you have done it. And that's a great time to hear his advice, his suggestions on how to move through that process, as well as ask questions if you are like, hey, we tried this step, it didn't go so well. What's your feedback on this? Or, hey, we did this and it was awesome. So it's gonna be another session where you'll be able to interact. It's one of the reasons why we are breaking you up into smaller groups so that you have time to kind of have that interaction as well as be part of the presentation. In room 2, that will be led by our wonderful, I think Cassie's already stepped out the room. Her and Sean Reed, who is the president of my Urban League chapter in Dallas-Fort Worth. Our chapter, Dallas-Fort Worth Urban League Young Professionals, are gonna co-lead a session where they're gonna talk about coalition building. It's really cool. Cassie's gonna talk about the perspective about on-campus coalitions. And then Sean is gonna talk about kind of building even community coalitions with groups that are in your community that may be wanting to reach out and do the work. I know as being a member from that Urban League chapter, we do a lot of things with campuses or the orgs, or how can we support, or how can we drive, or how can we amplify? So sometimes there's even communities around you that are also nonpartisan organizations that might be willing to step in, give ideas, or even we talked about like getting certain speakers, and some schools have those connections, some don't. But for instance, like perhaps maybe, and I'm saying Urban League as the example because they're going to be talking, but there's other groups. Perhaps your Urban League or your Move or your All In. It's like, hey, I actually had them speak at an event for us before. I know exactly who to, no, don't reach out to them. Let me connect you with the person to get this person here. So sometimes it's good just for that. So they're going to talk about coalition building on both community and campus levels. And then you all get to visit our sponsor and organizational tables. They are here to talk to you about their organizations, their work, give you a little swag if they have it. I don't know what swag each table has. Go check them out, ask questions. Some may have actually chapters on your campus, some might not, some might be trying to, and some grab the cards, get to connect. I mean, like I said, Pizza to the Polls, our connection with them came from another conference where our deputy who spoke to you in the video message met a representative. They had a good chat. She was like, you need to talk to Bianca. They have a summit coming up in 2 weeks. And then we had pizza. So these things, so make sure we get these connections, build these relationships. You will have about a 10-minute break, maybe a little longer. We kick off breakout rooms starting at 10:30. So feel free to stretch, check your number. Virtual attendees, make sure you are in the space. I will move you around, and thank you all for being so attentive. And we are looking forward to hybrid breakout rooms. We will have a feedback form later. Make sure you tell me both your yays and nays of the day as we go through so we can keep making this great. But go ahead and stretch, restroom breaks, get some more water, and then we will resume. You all will resume on the second floor. Thank you all.
Okay, hello everyone. We're gonna go ahead and get started with our next session. And also I wanna say that during this session, we have 2 presentations. So if you're an admin or faculty representative, please attend the admin only breakout we're having during this time. Jenna, right back there, will be in that with you. So feel free to follow her. You're gonna be in the same room as breakout room 1. Thank you so much. Okay, all the students and organizational representatives, you are free to stay here. Okay, so I'm going to quickly introduce myself and introduce our next speaker. So I'm Sarah Batson. I'm a student at UT Austin. I'm also on the Student Advisory Board for Campus Vote Project. I'm the co-chair and Texas member, and I was a Democracy Fellow in 2020. I'm super excited to introduce our next speaker, Selena M. Gomez, MPA, who also serves as Vote Riders Texas Voter ID Coalition Coordinator. For 4 years prior to joining Vote Riders, Selena worked with Mi Familia Vota Education Fund to increase Latinx voter turnout through voter registration and education, citizenship programs, and GOTV campaigns. Previously, she worked in the House of Representatives in one of the most competitive districts in the nation. Her 10-year prior experience in nonprofits includes working with the League of Women Voters as a member, a youth transitioning into adulthood as a board member, San Antonio Immigrant Youth Movement as the Director of External Affairs, Texas Dream Alliance as the coordinator, Council for Minority Student Affairs as a founder and president, United We Dream as a field organizer, and Workers Defense Fund project as a fellow. Selena obtained her Bachelor of Science from Texas A&M College Station and her Master's in Public Administration from the University of Texas, San Antonio. Please join me in welcoming Selena.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Okay. I didn't realize they were gonna say everything I've done, so I've obviously dated myself. I can't even say that I just graduated. So, but yes, so I'm here to talk to you all about something very important that we are seeing has had some impact in these most recent elections in Texas. And honestly, we anticipated potentially having impact in these upcoming runoff elections. We have the next elections May 7th, May 24th, and then we have the general ones. So I am going to be giving quite a bit of information. So if you have any questions, please feel free to jump in, especially if it's on something particular, just because it'll make more sense, right, for me to answer them at that point. So as it was said, I'm Selena Gomez. I'm the Texas ID Coalition Coordinator and the National Outreach Director for Vote Riders. So just to give you a little bit of background on the organization, and we can go to the next slide here. In case you haven't heard of Vote Riders, we are a national nonpartisan, and we do highlight the nonpartisanship part. We've been around since 2012. Today, in this month, actually in April, we're actually celebrating our 10th birthday. So we've been around for 10 years because we started as an organization when we started to see that voter ID laws really started gaining momentum and we started seeing legislation across the states. To make sure that we're doing that follow-up component because a lot of the great work that you do, especially with students, a lot of the times they're first-time voters, right? And it shows that if the first time that you're voting isn't a good experience, you're probably not going to go back. And so that's what we want to make sure that we do. We have historically worked with over 900 organizations across the states and also national ones in joining campaigns. And campaigns that really target to help vulnerable populations. For example, we have our #TransPeopleVote campaign with headcount because we know that, for example, the transgender and non-binary community have different obstacles when it comes to ID, right? Whether it's the name change, the gender marker change. So it could reflect what they identify as. So, you know, if they're in students is definitely one of them as well, that we have some specific campaigns. So if that is something that you're interested in as well, please feel free to talk to me afterwards. So this next one is a state, just to give you an idea. The states that are almost white are states that do not have a voter ID law. However, because of federal law, if it is your first time voting in a federal election, you are going to be asked to show an ID. However, it's only the first time, and after that, you're good to go. As you can see, where Texas falls, that lighter teal, these are states where there's a voter ID law, but there's also alternatives, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about it for Texas specifically. And then the dark teal ones, as you can see, those are states where there's just no way around it. You have to have a photo ID. If not, you're not able to vote. And just to give you an idea, there's about 25 million voting age Americans that don't have a current government issued ID. And this is very important because depending where you live, you may have to have an ID that isn't expired, or it can only have been expired for a certain amount of time. So knowing that there are 25 million people, again, right, it's not enough to just register people to vote, but we also need to make sure that they have the correct documentation to go when they're going to go to the polls. Now, just to give you an idea on how complicated voter ID can be, when it comes to student IDs, there's 28 states that either don't have a voter ID law or they actually accept student IDs. There's 13 states that sometimes accept student IDs. So whether it's because it's missing certain information or because they don't have an expiration date, they may not qualify to be accepted as you know, an ID to vote. And there's actually 10 states that don't accept student IDs. And where's the great state of Texas in that list, of course. I like to point it out just because we use a lot of your campuses as a polling location, right? So you would think that you can go after class, use your student ID and go vote, right? But you're not able to. So if you're looking for ways to get key people engaged in your campus, things that you're looking to focus on during the legislative session or whatever it may be, I mean, that could be one of them for sure. You know, expanding the identifications to where you could use your student ID. Now, in addition to student IDs, because there was such a historic turnout in the 2020 elections, we have seen that there has been a lot of momentum of having states introduce legislation to create additional barriers. And ID is one of them. So in 2021, there are 7 states that changed their voter ID requirements. And of course, you can see that Texas is one of them. And right now, as of right now, there are 22 states that are pending legislation that may be changing their ID requirements. Now, it's not to say that they will change, but there is that possibility. And because we're going to have the general elections, it may create additional voter confusion on top of the voter confusion that is already going on. We saw already the impacts when it came to Texas SB1, right? Does anybody know what was going on with mail-in ballots? You could just start talking. What was the new change? Close. It wasn't just Harris County, it's all of Texas, but it was with the mail-in ballots. For the new mail-in ballot request forms, as well as the mail-in ballots when you send it in, you're actually required now to provide your ID or driver's license number or the last 4 of your social security. Here's the kicker though. You have to use the same number that you used when you registered to vote. So if you registered years ago and you don't remember what number you used, then they were getting, the ballots were getting kicked off. There were about 25,000 mail-in ballots in Texas that were rejected in the primaries because people, one, either didn't know that they weren't using the new form to request a mail-in ballot. And so because they didn't provide that number, they didn't get one. Or 2, they had their ballot, they sent it in, but because they didn't know they had to provide it because the question is actually on the flap of the envelope, so you actually have to look for it. If not, you may miss it. And because they didn't provide that, it was, rejected. So now we're going to go into the actual voter ID law. But I just want to highlight as well that we recently had a Forbes article published where it talked about student IDs in particular and the effects that it has on the voter turnout and the youth vote. A lot of people talk about the youth, the youth, the youth. Yeah, well, if you're not actually passing policies to help the youth actually go vote by making it more accessible, by including identification that is going to be provided to them when they start class, then, you can argue like, are you really making policies that are friendly to the voters that you are trying to impact? So also with this, there's specific demographics that are more impacted than others. Of course, we know that people of color are impacted more. They're less likely to have a government issued ID. Younger voters, youth and students, because you're a lot more mobile. I remember that, every academic year I would live somewhere different. And to be quite honest, it wasn't my priority to say, oh, I moved, let me update my voter registration card. It's something that you don't necessarily do. So, and then also the mail-in ballots come into play. If you want to stay registered in your hometown and you want to vote by mail, you have to go through different criteria sometimes. So we also know that women are more impacted by voter ID loss, especially when they get married, they want to change their name, or they're getting divorced and they want to go back to their maiden name. A lot of the times you may change your name in different documents, but your voter registration card may not come to mind immediately. We also know that members from the LGBTQ community are more impacted, also people with disabilities. And so voter ID is really geared to, and Vote Riders is really geared to helping all of those vulnerable populations to make sure that they have an ID to vote. So voter ID in Texas. We're going to talk first of voter ID when you're voting in person, and then a little bit about when you're voting by mail. So these are the acceptable identifications in Texas. Again, sadly, we don't have student IDs here. So you can use any of these identifications, and they can either be unexpired, or if they are expired, they can only be expired up to 4 years. If it's expired longer than that, then they will not accept it. Unless you are 70 years or older, then it doesn't matter how long it's been expired. Also note that people that have become naturalized citizens can take their naturalization certificate, and that one doesn't expire. So for us, we help individuals get their Texas driver's license or ID if they don't have one of these acceptable identifications, throughout the state of Texas. Any questions on these? No, pretty straightforward. Yes.
Do most like poll workers, are they aware of these things, or do you get a lot of rejections for like IDs that are expired within the 4-year time frame?
Good question. I can't have a blanket answer because it really depends on the training that the poll workers had. I can tell you that in the next portion of with the declaration of reasonable impediment, there may be, because some poll workers, and it's not out of malice, it's just maybe the training may not want to give you a regular ballot when they should. But if you know, and that's our goal, right? Even if the poll workers don't know, we want to educate voters to where if they say, hey, it's expired, you can't use it. Instead of the voter taking their word for it, they can say, no, it's only expired 2 years ago and it can be expired up to 4. And for you to be able to advocate for yourself at the polls. So I haven't heard that being an issue. To be quite honest, we had a couple of issues with some students in the Valley, some high school students that they had just registered to vote, but it was because their names didn't match significantly. The lawyer kind of stuff is saying that it has to be significantly similar, but there was a last name missing, which can happen sometimes. So those tend to be a little bit more of the things that we see more than, the actual identification being expired.
Thank you.
Now, if you don't have an ID when you go vote in person, you are still able to cast a regular ballot if you provide one of these secondary documents here, so a bank statement, a utility bill, your voter registration certificate, and then you're asked to sign a declaration of reasonable impediment. It's a mouthful. So pretty much what you're saying there is that there is a reason that prevents you from getting an acceptable identification, right? Whether it's because of money or whatever it may be. So if you don't have one, please note, this is if you don't have one at all. You can't say, oh, I left it at home, I don't have it with me. Then you don't qualify for this. Then you will probably be giving, either you come back with it or you're giving a provisional ballot at that point. But if you don't have one at all, you should be able to cast a regular ballot still. And this is one of the places where we see that sometimes there are some questions about it where people are given the provisional one when they shouldn't be given the provisional ballot. It should be the regular one. Now, if you also want, one other thing that I do want to say is that if you do go that route because you don't have an acceptable ID and you sign that declaration, the poll worker is not allowed to ask you why you don't have one. And if they ask you, you don't have to answer because you don't need to tell them why. You don't need to tell them your business, honestly. So also please note that because sometimes people are asked and because they're there at the polling location, you think that you have to answer and you don't. Now, some of the frequently asked questions that we get is, what is a Texas election ID certificate? So I don't know if you were paying attention, but in the first list of identifications that I showed, that was one of them. Does anybody know what that is? Without reading, no cheating. No, okay. So by law, if a state is to pass a voter ID law, by law, they have to provide a free ID that they can use to vote. That is kind of like a stipulation federally, right? Because the argument is to make it so people don't have to pay money to be able to vote. Now, every state has a different. In Texas, essentially, you have to go through the same exact process. So you still have the burden of getting your proof of residency, your proof of citizenship, and your proof of identity. And you still have to go to the DPS. The only difference is that you don't have to pay the fee to get your state ID. And once you get this identification here, you can't use it for anything else but voting. It's not valid for anything. So again, that's why in Vote Riders, we help people get their state identification or their driver's license because while you can use it to vote, you can still use it for other things, right? You can use it for employment. You can use it for, leasing agreements and things like that. Yes, question? So I will definitely get back to you on how long they're good for. From my understanding, it's the same as an ID. And again, it's the same process. The only difference is you don't have to pay anything, and you cannot use it for anything else other than voting. But that's a good question. I'll definitely get back to you on that. And then also one other thing, who has gotten their driver's license or ID since 2016? Okay. And when you compare it to your parents' ID, do you see anything different if they haven't renewed it? What is it? Okay, yeah, that's one thing. Not the one I was going for. Yes, that little gold star, right? So that little gold star means that you have a real ID. Do you know what you need that for or what it is? Yes, so it was supposed to be back in 2020, but because of the pandemic, they've been pushing it. But in order for you to fly or to enter a federal building, your ID has to have a small star on it, indicating that it's a real ID. In Texas, if you've gotten your driver's license or ID or renewed it since 2016, they've automatically already started doing real IDs. In other states, they haven't. They give you the option. Yes. Okay, going back to the election certificate. This is, to be quite honest, I wouldn't push it. I would push it if it was easier to get. Like, for example, in Georgia, you could go to your elections office and you can get it a couple days before election day. But here you can't do that in Texas. So that's why even if we were to push that 2 days, you're still gonna, it's still the same process as getting your state ID. So honestly, Texas kind of put it to comply, right? And of course, I defer to you all, whatever, you know, if you're working with someone. But to be quite honest, I always push for that ID. So, so we're talking about real IDs. The short answer is a lot of people started asking if they needed a real ID to vote. You do not need a real ID to vote. You do not have to have that little star to vote. But you will need it to travel. So if you plan on traveling or visiting your local congressman or senator and they end up being in a federal building, they will need that type of identification. Now, when it comes to voter ID with the vote by mail, this screenshot, it's super little, but just to give you an idea, that is what the new request form looks like. There's a small box to the right where it asks for your ID, driver's license number, or the last 4 of your social. Again, if you want to vote by mail and you want to request one, and you don't remember what number you used exactly when you registered to vote, you can provide both at this point. Of course, in Texas, because vote by mail is already super limited, not as many people are going to be impacted, right? So you have to either be 65 years or older. You have to not be where you are supposed to vote on election day or during early voting, or you being disabled, something that prevents you from going to the polls in person. So there's a lot of information here, but I'm going to break it down, just give you some of the highlights here. So voting by mail, some frequently asked questions is, do you need to include your ID with your vote by mail ballot application? The answer is no, you do not, but you do need to provide that number that you used when you registered to vote now. Again, if you don't provide that number, you're going to be contacted and say that you have 6 days from election day to be able to go cure your ballot to make that correction. If you don't go to your local elections office within that window, then your ballot will not be counted. Also, do you need to include, well, it's kind of the same thing with the mail-it application and with the actual ballot. Again, you just need to provide the number, but you need to make sure that you do that, because if not, you will be contacted by your local elections office that if you don't cure it, you won't, they won't be counting that. Now, any questions on the actual voter ID law? No, we're good to go? Thumbs up? Okay. So here are some tools and services that VoteWriters provides to you all that you can use on the field when you identify somebody who either doesn't know if they have an acceptable ID or if they need help in actually obtaining one. So we do voter ID assistance. So we help with anything from, let's say, maybe you moved to college and you took your documents and you lost your birth certificate. We can help you get a copy of your birth certificate. Not only do we help you navigate through the process of getting it, but we can also cover the cost of it. Let's say you lost your social security card. We can help you with that with the Social Security office. We can help you get a replacement and we cover the fees. If you need to get your driver's license, now we don't pay for, you know, the driving school or anything to be able to get your driver's license, but to get your actual driver's license, the $36+, we can cover the fee for you. Also for the actual ID. Let's say that you're ready to go, but you need transportation. We can get you the transportation and you don't have to worry about cost because we cover it. We have gotten anything from just, hey, I need a ride here, to people that need to amend their documents because their names don't match, right? So it can take a day to help a person. It could take a month. It could take months to help a person. So that's why we encourage you all, when you're doing voter registration, you're talking about voting on campuses, make sure that you include voter ID earlier rather than later. Because if the person doesn't have it, they're going to need some time to figure it out what it is that they need and how they can go get it. And especially depending where you live, for the most part, now they're taking walk-ins, but sometimes they may still need an appointment as well. Another thing that I encourage you to bookmark is our state-by-state website, which you can see the Texas one here. I do have to say that all of our tools and services are fully bilingual in both English and in Spanish. And on our website, it gives you, again, the acceptable identifications. It talks about the alternative documents that you can take. It also talks about how if you need to request help, you can do it from there. It also has a link to the Texas Secretary of State's office. And then also you can download one of our cards, which I'm going to be talking about in the next slide, and you'll have the opportunity to actually take some home. But the reason why I encourage you to always have this website up is because we updated as there are changes. I don't know if y'all remember for 2020, it seemed like every day there was a change for mail-in ballots and the ID request, and some states trying to make it more accessible, some refusing to. So for example, when SB 1 passed and there was that change for the mail-in ballots for the ID requirement, it did pass in September. But on December 2nd, when it was implemented, you went to our website and it was updated faster than, to be quite honest, a lot of other websites. So we always keep it up to date. So our goal is that when a voter goes to our website that day, they know what it is that they have to take to the polls that day that they check it out. So definitely encourage you to just kind of refer people to there, to that website. We also have our voter ID info cards, which there's a huge stack in the back, and you'll be able to take some. These are wallet-sized voter ID information cards, where on this side of the front side that you can see here, it has our QR code and it will take you to that Texas website. It also has our helpline where you can either call or text us, and you are able to get assistance, excuse me, right away, or you can get your questions answered, because honestly, about 70% of the time, it's people just having questions, wanting to make sure that they do have the right ID. So these, we have them both physically printed out and also digitally. So if you're planning on doing like text banks, or you have like a newsletter, or you want to send it through a listserv, something electronic, you're able to download that. But you are also able to print those out. You can take a stack today, but if you run out, you can actually go to our website and you can order these completely free. So if you are a nonpartisan organization, you're a C3, there is no limit as to how many you can order, how many times you can order them. So this is also really good when you're doing, voter registration, for example, you start talking about voter ID. It doesn't mean that you have to become the voter ID expert, but if anybody has a question, you can give them that and you can ask them to call that helpline, and we can go ahead and answer any question that they may have. Now, I talked a little bit already about this, but we have our helpline, the 844-338-8743 number. That's my little infomercial kind of, insert there. But this, we have it informed to where you can contact us through text. You can also email us. We also have a chat on Facebook. I know, super old. We're still on Facebook. Please excuse us. I know, we're really showing our age. And if you go to our website, to votewriters.org, our chat bot will automatically pop up on the bottom right-hand corner as well. So you can also tell people that they can get assistance through there. One of the cool things that I like about this is that you don't have to go through 10 prompts to get to your actual question. We do have 2 automated questions. The first one is, do you prefer English or Spanish? So we know what language to use. The second is, what state do you live in, to make sure that we give you the right information. But after that, you don't have to worry about misspelling something or, providing keywords so we can help you. You're actually chatting with a live staff member or trained volunteer in the back end. So if you already know that you need help in getting a state ID right off the bat, after you answer the first 2 questions, you can say, hey, I need help in getting an ID. I don't have my birth certificate, or whatever it is. And it happens to me all the time, but if you still have that autocorrect or whatever, and you end up putting a word that isn't supposed to be there, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be able to read it, because there's a live person reading that. We also do joint outreach. So here, the purple graphic here is one of the campaigns that I talked a little bit about. We also do volunteer events. So we do phone banks, text banks. So let's say that you want to be able to do a text bank, to a list of voters that you've registered to vote and you want to do a follow-up for voter ID. We can definitely co-host an event. Or let's say you want to do a one-pager, a co-branded one-pager, talking about, what you're focusing on as a chapter, and then also include some ID information. We'd be more than happy to develop that with you all. So we also, and again, these events are virtual, but if you want to do them in person, if people feel comfortable with that, we can definitely talk about that as well. We also have our direct voter contact partnerships. So let's say that you have a really robust program where you're going to be constantly talking to voters, whether it's voter registration or you're doing like an issue, a campaign on campus, whatever it may be. We work with partners where they add a voter ID question, right? So either you register the person, let's say it's voter registration, you register them and then you say, great, you'll get your voter registration card in about 30, giving that spiel. And then saying, in Texas, it's not enough to register. You also have to make sure that you have an ID to go vote. Do you have an acceptable ID? And if people say that they don't know or they answer no, then the organization will send us a list either every week, every 2 weeks, every month. And we have staff and trained volunteers that is going to give the voters a call back and then do an intake with them. So then they can make sure, one, if they do have an acceptable ID, and if they don't, then we start the process as to, okay, what do we have to do to get you an acceptable ID? So if that's something that you're interested in, and you don't have to do it on a weekly basis. If you say, hey, I'm having a one-time event and I really want to get people signed up, if they need help with their ID, we can also help with that as well. We also do voter ID training. So kind of similar to this, right? Talking about the actual voter ID on its own and kind of breaking it down. And then having some of these tools that could be helpful on the ground. So if you have canvassers, phone bankers, text bankers, or you have membership that you want to get trained, or a community event and you have volunteers that can incorporate this, we also do that. We do them both in person and virtually. So that is what I have here humbly to offer you all on your campuses. For us, it is very important that students are engaged. And again, that we are supporting that demographic, because even though there's all this talk about youth vote, we also need to back up our talk as well, right? We need to make sure that there are policies that are really being inclusive of everybody, including youth, and making sure that we're increasing the turnout, not discouraging it. So if you have any questions after, digesting all of this information, you can definitely shoot me an email if you're interested in either doing a follow-up or just to kind of have some information. I'm more than happy to give you my business card. If you have any questions, you can also email us at info@votewriters.org. And also you can follow us on the platforms. Again, our age is showing, we're not on TikTok, but you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Any questions? So, and we can definitely talk a little bit more offline. We actually have a website, a page specifically for that. So we break down the states on how we did the color coded with voter ID. We do it, but we do it for transgender individuals. And then the process that you have to take to be able to make those changes to your ID. If you need help, we actually have people that are interested in this program to where we help with the guidance of going through the process. And there's a couple of partners that we actually have that can cover the monetary cost for the court fees when they want to do a name change. So we help with that guiding portion, giving you the information on what are the next steps that you need to take. And then we can connect you depending where you are in Texas, obviously, and well, it's not just in Texas, it's in all the states, but I'm happy to share that, at least in Texas, especially in the Harris County area, we do have some partners that can cover those costs because we know that that could be one of the issues as to why they're not able to make that name change and be able to use the ID that they feel comfortable with. Yes. Let me stay nonpartisan here. All of the legislation we've seen is to either implement a new ID law, so they didn't have an ID law and now they're looking to implement one, or to make the current ID law more strict. I think that answers it, right? We haven't seen legislation, like I said, right, where you can potentially expand, for example, the identifications that could be used in a state. But we do track them. So if at any point, especially here in Texas, for example, during the legislative session, if you have any questions on, hey, what's going on, you can call our helpline or you can even contact me. We don't do advocacy, right, necessarily, but we make sure that we keep up to date on those that legislation, so we know what we potentially have to go up against. Any other questions? No, we're good. Well, please, please, please grab a stack or 2 or 3 in the back before leaving. Those are the small cards. Super easy. You can give those out. Again, you don't have to become the voter ID expert to be able to help voters with ID. And also, if you have any questions, I'll be sticking around for a little while. In case there's anything specifically that you want to talk about voter ID, anything that you want to do on your campus, or if you want to implement any of these tools and services, or if you want my card so we can maybe do a one-on-one later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anna, I was going to prompt y'all for applause, but you already knew it was applause worthy. So we have a little bit of time before the admin group comes back. So feel free to just take a chill pill, go to the restroom. I know we just had lunch, but chat with your neighbor about vote writers and meet someone new. We're gonna have about, I think, 15 minutes ish until the admin come back. And at that point, we will have Bianca speak again. So thank you all so much for your questions and your participation.
Hellos in the back. Thank you. So we have almost, we're not there yet, but almost. We have almost reached the end, but before we go, we have a couple things we would like for you to do, especially right now. I should just close the doors on you, make you a captive audience, because I am about to pull up a screen and I'm about to have an ask for you. You can probably guess. We want your feedback. See, we were clever. See, last year, this was the last slide and people were like, oh, that's cute. Okay, and they were gone. So a tip to you all too, put your feedback forms before the end is, because you're still sitting in here with me for about 15, 20 minutes. So we have time. So I am going to real quick do double duty. We have a lovely QR code. I also will probably send this out, but if you look at that, look at the cameras in the room. Yes. We want your feedback. We used feedback from our last virtual as we came into the in-person and helped think about like the types of breakouts, the types of programming, the types like your answers here help inform our next summit, honestly. It might be why we have a repeat of certain exercises. I know last year, like the virtual, people were like, oh, student panels we want. So we're like, we're not gonna give you just 1 day, we'll give you 2 days of them then. Like, so it really does inform, or if there's a topic that you wanted and we did not have it at this one, yes, we know there's only so much time, but at the same time, if we notice, hey, folks are asking about this, then we're gonna try to make it happen. One way or another, whether it's at the next summit or maybe it's just optional programming we bring in, somehow we'll make sure to get these things to you. So please make sure, we love compliments. We love hearing good things. Also, we love hearing opportunities for how we can do better. So make sure you're honest with us. It helps inform us. It helps make us better. It helps us support you better. And honestly, sometimes you see things that we don't see. And it will really help. You all are the folks that are on the ground doing a lot of this work, engaging with your peers. We want to hear from you. So we make sure that we're not just putting together something just to put it together, but something that actually really has an impact and helps support you all in the work that you do. So I'm gonna lead us up for a bit. I see, look at that. Look, isn't this beautiful? So we're gonna leave it up for a bit. Yay, look, she got it on there, hey. So yeah, we appreciate you. When I do move forward on the slide, that does not mean you have to stop. I just wanted to give everyone time to try to at least get the QR up. I will follow up with a link. So if any of you were having problems or technical difficulties, it looks like y'all are zipping away with it, but let us know and I'll make sure that we can actually send you the actual link to click and do it the other way. So with that, we're not done. With that, I do have a couple of people I'm gonna bring up to actually speak to you a little bit about some programming and things we do on campus. So in a moment, the next voices you will hear will be of Cassie, Brianna, and Sarah, all from our CVP and SAB team to tell you about SAB, about our research collective, and about the Legacy Initiative. So without further ado, starting with Cassie. All right. You're lovely.
I wear dangly earrings and a mask, and that's just like a bad idea. Okay, so y'all, I'm super excited to tell you about something that has been my passion project for the last year or so. So you know my title, curriculum and research manager. And as we've kind of formed up our curriculum nationally, I've gotten to start doing a lot more with our research, which I'm really excited about. So one of the cool things we have at CVP, which started in like the beginning of the year, is the CVP Research Collective. The Research Collective is open to all students, not just democracy fellows, who are interested in the intersection of higher education and civic engagement. So it can be policy, it can be like, I want to understand why more students aren't voting on my campus, and I want to try to do some research around that. We're partnering with some amazing people in Texas. Dr. Sidner is helping me with one of my projects. And so basically, I'll tell you my little story is that as a student, PhD student who's doing a PhD in political communication, and my dissertation is at the intersection of higher ed and civic engagement, I'm the only one in my program doing that. So I'm kind of an academic orphan, and that's pretty common in this space. So this is our place for all the orphans to hang out with each other and to learn more about how to do research, to get support on your research, opportunities to learn how to present your research. And we actually have a couple of students that we're taking. We took a Texas student to AAC&U to present at a conference. We are taking an Oklahoma and a Georgia student to present at another conference this summer. So if you're doing this work with us, if you have a senior thesis you're writing or anything like that, I just want to encourage you to join the CVP Research Collective if that's something that you are interested in, where you'll get mentorship. If you are a faculty member, I have goals in the future of like expanding this beyond students. But right now, faculty members, I'm looking for faculty members who might be interested in mentoring students in this space. So that is another opportunity. Or if you have a really rad professor on campus that you're like, I should let you know about this, please feel free to share. And yes, that's my big thing I've been working on. And I'll be handing around little business cards that have QR codes for both Research Collective and Legacy Initiative, which Brianna's going to come up and talk about. So please feel free to take a card and you'll find all the information you need to sign up and learn more about CVP Research Collective and Legacy Initiative from those cards.
Hello, everybody. I was about to say hello back. Yeah, I was about to say.
But so I'm sorry, I'm a little dizzy. I've been walking a lot. So my name is Brianna Booker. I'm the HBCU coordinator for Campus Vote Project. Who in here knows what a HBCU is? What is it? I'm not okay. Excuse me. See, sometimes we were like, just guess. So our legacy initiative basically aims to let me just read it for y'all because I'm a freestyle. So our legacy initiative aims to identify and address barriers that are specific to students at historically Black colleges and universities. And so we do this through research as well as programming. So if you go to our website, y'all has a little QR code. It's linked. So y'all go ahead and put your cameras out. It will take you to our website. And on there, we have what we call our Legacy Initiative Insights Brief. And so basically, this is research that we've done on what works at HBCUs, how we can impact and be helpful to historically Black colleges and universities who have historically led the fight for voting rights in this nation, right? And so as HBCU coordinator, my job is to work with all the historically Black colleges and universities and help to engage the students and create a culture of civic engagement that is also culturally significant and culturally sound. So I know some of you earlier were talking about you go to MSIs or Hispanic serving institutions, and you want to make sure that your culture is included in the narrative, right? So a lot of people, especially at historically Black college and universities, sometimes we think our vote doesn't matter because of historical disenfranchisement or things like that. So my job is to change the narrative. And our jobs in general are to change the narrative. That's kind of why y'all are here today. And so yes, if you want to know more about the Legacy Initiative, find me or go to that QR code. I hope that explains because I'm a little bit tired. But yeah, y'all, and I hope y'all really enjoyed the summer. Bianca did an excellent job. We clap it up for Bianca and for the whole team, really. And so yes.
Thank you so much, Brianna and Cassie, for talking about your initiatives. And I'm here to talk about the Student Advisory Board and the Student Advisory Board's Student Voting Network. There's too many acronyms in this space. I know that. And I probably said SAB to a few of you, and that sounds like nothing. But the point of the Student Advisory Board within Campus Vote Project is to make sure that student voices are always part of the process. We're about campuses and students voting, and it's important that students are leaders in that. And so I'm currently the member representing Texas and the vice chair of that board. And this role of this institution that we've kind of tried to build is to create a place where students can be empowered to bridge gaps and to become leaders, not just part of their institution's effort, but leading that effort and also helping other institutions to do that work. So currently, SAB's involved in several things. A few of them have been mentioned already. The SAB is heavily involved in the research collective that Cassie just talked about. We do a lot of collaborations with national partners in our monthly calls, and we also produce a podcast and support things like this, our state summit. I was very privileged to be on the board helping to advise this. And I think in general, the goal is just to help students connect on a student-to-student basis, not mediated through any sort of infrastructure that is campus-based or led by anyone else, but it's by us, for us, to help create those connections that can inspire meaningful action and also just keep you inspired, keep you wanting to do this work. For a lot of you who might not have support of your institutions, it's really helpful to hear from other students and get that inspiration and to provide that inspiration for others. So I hope that going forward, we can do a lot of that together. If I have not reached out to you already and gotten contact information from you, I would love to do that personally, but on an individual basis, if you don't find me today, please, you can join our next SVN call and our SVN Slack. That's our community with over 1,000 students from across the country who are interested in this issue area and interested in helping more students vote. And you can join that at bit.ly/SVN, SVN, the letters, all uppercase, Slack. You can join it there. But also if you get my number or my email, I will connect you and talk to you personally about how SVN can be a place for you and what its role can be in your work. We've talked a lot about all the things you can take advantage of. And I think that this student space is really crucial to help you kind of keep going with this as you transition out of your particular role you're in now. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to talk about this. And I'm so excited to pass it back to Bianca.
All right, look how smooth this was. Oh, come on back. Come on down. Here, stand closer to it. Can I move the camera?
Okay. Hello, y'all, again. I forgot to mention that the Legacy Initiative is in the process of creating programming and developing programming not only for students at historically Black colleges and universities, but also for Black students at PWIs. So if you want some like different trainings, conversations with elected officials who graduated from historically Black colleges and universities, that is in the works. So make sure you contact me. Or if you just yourself are interested in that type of, environment, then also contact me. Now I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. We go to our next slide. So before I go to close, of course, one of the things we always know is you always make sure you have an ask somewhere when you're meeting with folks. So I have a little call to action. Some of these may not apply to some of you all, some things you have done. But since I have both admins and students in the room, I just wanted to go over it. We actually still have some, not a lot. Some of you have already signed up for our voter-friendly campus program or are aware of what it is. It's a national designation you can get for a lot of the work that you actually are already doing and just putting together a plan to show it, to look at the outcomes of that plan and the plan for the future. And what it also does, out to me at least, outside of being a great way to show your work and give ideas, it also gives you something to pass down so that as you matriculate out the school or if people change roles within your school, there still is this living, breathing document that shows the work that has been done, what came of that work, what are the next steps, and it doesn't just rest in the eyes of like, oh, this is great, but so-and-so graduated, I guess we got to start over, or so-and-so just went to another school, so now we have to find another here's a document that kind of write your history. We've talked about that, right? Leave a document of the work you're doing and helps inform you for the future. You can still sign up for Voter Friendly Campus. We talked about all the emails going out, but there are more emails going out. And I'm sure after this, I'll make sure we drop a link that if your school has not already signed up to be part of this program, there is still a little bit of time left. And make sure you let me know because I can literally even give a heads up to our team to say the school let me know they want to do this. I'm saying it's cool. When theirs comes in, this is why, because I literally just sent it to them. Let's let them in. So that's one of the things. Also, if you do not already have Democracy Fellows on your campus, there are some schools here that do not currently have fellows, or you have one fellow and you want a second one, or you want to bring fellows back. Let me know. This email can come from administrators or it can come from students. Now, I will say, if you're sitting here, you're not a fellow and don't have fellows on your campus, part of our conversation will be, let's figure out who is going to be our faculty or admin contact to grow this. But that's a conversation we can have. If you are interested, I want you to feel empowered too, that you can email and reach out to say, hey, this sounds super cool. We don't have this here. I'm interested in it. What can I do? How can I get this here? Reach out to me. Admin, same thing. If you don't already have fellows or if you're bringing fellows back or if you just have questions about the fellows program and you've done it in the past or you're brand new, email me because in the fall, we want to make sure if you're interested in having them in the fall, we want to kind of start some of these talks now, especially if you're unfamiliar with the program so we can give you information, answer questions and give you resources that will help you recruit or at least put things out so you can find students that you would like to be your Campus Vote Project Fellows. So again, admins can contact me about it, but I'm letting you know if you're a student at a campus and you don't have that here, email me and let's have a conversation and let's think of, okay, these are the steps to make this happen. And for everyone in the room, get deputized to register voters. You are not. Please do so. Yes, we know there's rules. Yes, I know there's 254 counties in the state. So I'm not saying you have to get deputized in all 254, but if you do, let us know, because that's a real cool story. We can post you. You would beat me in 4. I know some of y'all actually, there are people in this room that already have me beat on that. But I would love to make sure that everyone is deputized so that you not only are empowered and able to register voters, but also so that you're up to date and current on whatever rules and systems are going on in your campus. And it also gets you connected with your local election officials as well to get deputized. So please do that. Please do that. Those are my asks. If you have questions about that, let me know as well. So with that, let's go to the next slide real quick. I'm sorry. Oh, no, I know, it's in here. So real quick, actually, that's my line right here. So before I get to my closing remarks, and then I'm gonna go back through all the thank yous that you may have heard, but I am a very affirmational, affirming person. So before I go through and give out my thank yous, I am gonna bring up my right-hand person who's been doing this work with me, my deputy state coordinator, Jenna Green.
Thanks, everyone. And I know you've all heard my voice a bunch today and you get my emails almost twice a week. But I did want to give a couple quick reminders for my fellows. Please add this whole weekend to your timesheets, including travel time and all the time you worked during the summit and after the summit. That's really important. And I don't want y'all to miss out on like 20 hours of work. My second ask is you should have gotten an email from Eugenia if there are some paperwork forms like W-9s that need to be submitted. So please respond to those as soon as possible as well. Thank you all for coming. And it was great to meet all of you in person. If we took pictures, also please post them on Slack so I can post them on social media. Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, I don't know how we'll get through this year. I don't know how I even did this role prior to Jenna becoming like literally Jenna and Eugenia actually were both fellows. They were my fellows. We hung out a lot in the room. We would be done with updates and we'd still talk the whole rest of the time in our little Google Meets. And it's just been great working with them and they do so much. You hear from Jenna all the time. Jenna works tirelessly. She's always asking questions of what more we can do for the program or how can we even be more of a support. So I do want to give another round of applause to Jenna Green. Thank you. Cassie is the person with the plan too. She's always like, oh, this little thing I did, research collective, like I'm telling you, this would not work. It just wouldn't. We have meetings all the time. I bounce off. Our brainstorm sessions sometimes can go wild, but when our brains both get going, but she just does so much for our program. Brianna is recently joined, and I know you saw her fire, her energy. She's been in like 3,000 different spaces this weekend at once and still managed to come back to do her spiel and do her work and everything and do it with a smile because I was like, you just flow into the room. It's like, yay. And I'm like, I would have been like, hey, y'all, okay. So we appreciate that. I also want to say Eugenia is behind the scenes. Well, I'm telling you, she makes the world tick. She set up these capital tours. No, stop doing that. No, put the hand down. She does so much. She's always going to do this. Ignore that. Just pretend she's waving at herself because she's fabulous. So I didn't want to say that. And even though she said not to say much too, my executive assistant / fiance has been running around this building, keeping me sane, going up and down the steps, making me drink water and checking on really everybody and doing a lot of things like for not just me, but like for the whole team. So I do appreciate that. You're not on the payroll at all, but I just thank you. And Sarah, look, she's like, shout out to Sarah. She's also been doing a lot, buzzing around. And yesterday completely ran that tech. And I think we maybe talked for like 5-10 minutes before that. And then she just figured it all out. And then I want my volunteers to wave their hands. We had a bunch of volunteers from Texas Women in Texas. Y'all, thank you. I mean, from everything to grabbing super heavy things from the loading dock. And my directions were like, I don't know where the auditorium is. I hope you can find it. And they're just, okay. So I really appreciate that, running the chat, running the systems, and helping make this an actual interactive virtual experience. So this has truly been a fantastic 2 days spending this with you all. I hope you gained as much from the experience as I honestly did. So before, I just want to leave you with all the things we just talked about. And on behalf of Campus Vote Project, I would like to thank again our planning committee of Campus Vote Project, Texas Women's University, Prairie View A&M University, Tarrant County College District, and the University of Texas at Austin. We're going to be doing a lot of clapping now. So another round of applause for them. They've been working on the last 2 summits with us. Let me go to the next slide. Money, 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 right? So I also want to thank our main sponsors, Campus Vote Project, and also the Jane Nelson Institute of Women's Leadership, Texas Women's University, also All In, Andrew Goodman Foundation, Common Cause, the League of Women Voters of Texas, Next Gen America, Move Texas, and also like our lunch day one co-sponsor, Pizza to the Polls, who have all been a part of this. The Annette Strauss Institute, which is part of UT, also has done a lot as far as getting our rooms and getting everything at the Capitol. So I just want to say a big thank you to all these people because they are the reason this was able to happen in the way it happened. And I'm very much appreciative. And I just want to give shout outs that, again, it's not about who's in front or who's doing this or who gets the most time. Like these groups come together and we are collectively working together and engaging in this space. So I want to give them their time and their shout outs to just say they have been a main factor and a huge contributor of helping this Campus Vote Project Summit come to life. And so I do want to give them that time. They're great organizations. And really, most of them was just like, here's the money, you just tell me what you need. Like it wasn't about, I have to do this, or I have to speak, or I have to do this. It was like, this is great, how can we help you? So I do want to give shout outs to them for that. So another round of applause. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, and last but certainly not least, thank you all to our attendees, our presenters, both here and afar. Thank you so much for being here. I also want to remind you on the way out, please get entire stacks of those cards. You heard from Celine. Those are some of the cards I think she talked about that they give out and that they also can mail out to your campuses. Please get them, use them. I literally had thousands when I started, so I'm telling you, please grab them, use them on your way out and share them on your campuses. This has been a true labor of love by our entire team. We're grateful to everyone that helped bring this event to life. And with that being said, we wish you a wonderful afternoon. And to all of you that are traveling, whether it's today, tomorrow, or whenever you leave, we wish you very safe travels. Let us know how we can support you and just really thank you for sharing with us and spending this time. I'm very touched, so thank you.
She didn't mention herself. You guys, everyone give a huge congratulations to Bianca.
Get on out of here. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm just happy to support. Let us know how we can ever be a resource to you. Feel free to email. You have my card, text me, email me, call me. Thank you very much.